Okay, so the Predator has arrived. How does it hold up? Let's find out. The Predator is the fourth entry in the Predator series, sixth overall if you count Alien vs. Predator and Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, and is co-written and directed by Shane Black, the same guy who was an uncredited script doctor in the original Predator, as well as Hawkins. The movie opens up with a Predator ship crashing into Earth after it's trying to escape from another ship that is later revealed to be another Predator ship. So this first Predator crashes on Earth, is discovered by a soldier, captured, then escapes to get all of its gear back, but it's soon revealed that it's being hunted by a bigger, more advanced Predator, and it's up to a group of unstable mercenaries to basically just get the Predators out of the town. In a way, the setup sounds similar to that of AVPR, but I'll tell you right now that it's not as bad as that. But first, recap of the Solo movies. I adore Predator. I think it's one of the greatest action movies out there. I like it better than Die Hard, which is controversial, but I just adore this movie. It's well acted, well written, has great quotes, memorable characters, an iconic monster, and a final act that'll just put you on the edge of your seat for how brilliant it is. I put it up there with Alien and Aliens in terms of how great this movie is. Predator 2 is pretty much the first movie all over again, except take the script, erase jungle, and just write downtown Los Angeles. It pretty much is beat for beat the same movie. It has a few good moments here and there are some cool ideas, but it's just not all that special. And then we get to Predators, which goes back to the jungle, but actually does a few different things that I admire this movie for doing, more than Predator 2 ever did. It is a smaller film, and it definitely came out too soon after the Alien vs. Predator series died. But it has some great action, the gore is awesome, and for being a Robert Rodriguez production, at least in terms of his production company handling it, it feels very toned down and grounded. So I think it's pretty underrated. So now we come to The Predator. I wish they could have come up with a better name for this movie, but regardless, my expectations were not sky high, but there was definitely a level of hope and optimism with this movie because it was being written and directed by Shane Black. I really like Shane Black as a writer for stuff like Lethal Weapon, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, and I even like Iron Man 3. I know that's a very controversial opinion, but I think Iron Man 3 is pretty damn good. So I was interested to see how he would handle a Predator movie, especially, as I said before, he worked on the original movie as a script doctor, and for the longest time I've always said that if there's anybody that could make another great Predator movie, it would be Shane Black, because he's been there since the beginning. And this is a weird movie. It's one of these things where I wish I could either love The Predator or hate The Predator. Instead, I feel stuck in between it being good and it being bad. If I were to rank the Predator movies just right now, I think Predators is a better movie in terms of being more well-made and more consistent. But one thing I really love The Predator for doing is not giving us the same plot that we've seen in the past two sequels. It's no longer just about hunting humans for sport, and I definitely give the movie credit for that because it tries to take the franchise in a new direction. It does some things with The Predator that are actually pretty cool and makes you wonder, why didn't we see this in the other movies? When the Predator actually kills people in this movie, it does it in very brutal, primal ways that we don't see in the other movies. Because with the other two sequels and the two spin-offs, we've seen the Predator kill in more traditional ways that are very similar to that of the first movie, where it just uses its equipment, its blades, its shoulder cannons. This movie, the kills are very brutal, like unbelievably brutal, maybe even brutal to a fault. There are a lot of cool kills in this movie, but sometimes the gore gets so outlandish and so over the top to a Rambo level of goofiness that it kind of takes you out of it. And I understand that the Predator series is supposed to be rated R to begin with, and the original Predator is definitely a hard R movie. There's a lot of bloodshed, but it never depended on the violence. Instead, it depended on the characters. It depended on the tension that the characters faced when facing the Predator, and it depended on the mystery of what this creature was, and the fact that you didn't see it until the last act of the movie, and you don't even see its face until the final battle. And it's in this aspect that it makes me wonder, was Shane Black the right guy for this? I mean, he was there on the first movie. I would have at the very least thought that he understood what made Predator so great, but maybe not. It's a weird feeling because I've heard a lot of behind-the-scenes trouble with this movie. I heard that they had to refilm the entire third act of the movie. They had to cut actors out, including a cut that happened days before it premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, where one of Shane Black's friends was in the movie who was a sex offender, and they cut him out at the last minute. Good for Olivia Munn for standing up. It's with all those aspects that you could definitely tell the movie was heavily edited, but I'm not going to say that this is Shane Black's fault. I'm going to go on the old fallback of this movie probably encountered a lot of studio interference. And I don't understand why the Alien and Predator movies can't escape this curse, but it just feels like a lot of decisions were made by Fox, not Shane Black, to basically cut a lot of it, and the result is a very weirdly edited movie, especially when we get to the third act. The third act of the movie is just a complete mess overall in terms of the editing. It's very choppy. There are a few moments that feel rushed and unintentionally funny. Things happen so quickly that you're just kind of taken back and confused. And the end of the movie, I will say, for their sake, I hope it makes money, and admittedly, for me, it's interesting enough to where I kind of want to see what a sequel would do, if it ever has one. If this movie doesn't do very well, they might go the route of Predators, where they just completely ignore that movie and kind of start fresh. Now, what about the characters? They range from boring to downright unlikable. The group of mercenaries that they have in this movie are all a bunch of crazy guys, which I feel like they tried too hard to make them crazy, and when you get to really know their background, they just come across as very unlikable to the point where you ask, why should we even like these guys to begin with? And your main character, I don't remember the actor's name, but I know he was in Logan. He was the guy with the robotic arm. There's nothing really to his character at all. And with Olivia Munn, if there was one person that I actually did like in this movie, it would be her. Just because I struggle to find somebody that I like in this movie. And Olivia Munn just seemed like the most competent and the most charismatic of the group. Because as I said, everyone else is boring, unlikable, sometimes annoying. And sometimes they leave so little impact on you that you even forget that some of them are in the movie. Now, in terms of the humor, there are a lot of elements in this movie that feel very much like Shane Black's humor, and there are a few points in this movie that actually did make me laugh. I thought there were some legitimately funny jokes here, but most of the jokes in this movie fall flat completely, and this has to deal with the film's inconsistent tone. When it opens, it's actually very serious. There are a lot of points where it plays out like a horror movie, and these are the elements in the movie where I see greatness in them. But whenever we cut to the humorous bits, whenever we have to focus on our characters, it just goes downhill so bad, and a lot of the jokes are just downright cringeworthy. And also, this movie commits the sin of having characters quote lines from the original Predator. They quote the famous "get to the chopper" line, and the way it's put in, it feels like it was thrown in as an afterthought, where it was just done with terrible ADR. And I've said this before in my Predators review, nobody should quote Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's just suicide altogether, because you're not going to deliver it in the same way Schwarzenegger delivers the lines. And then you have this weird running joke involving one of the Super Predator's dogs, and it just feels very random, and it's poorly edited. In fact, that whole final act, again, is just so poorly edited and random at points. Yeah, this is a weird movie. Like I said before, I wish I could either love it or hate it, because when Alien Covenant came out last year, I hated that movie when it came out. Even seeing it a second time when I was trying to be nice, I still hated it, and I was surprised that critics were as kind to it as they were. Not enthusiastically kind to it, but to a point where they were like, it's fine. And with this movie, I feel like it's reverse. I feel like some of the critics are being a little too harsh on this movie. I think a lot of people are overreacting to how bad it is, which I think this is average. It's probably on par with Predator 2 for me, because I'm not a fan of Predator 2. And while Predators is a more well-made movie and probably the best sequel, I admire this movie for actually doing something different and trying to expand the Predator universe in more ways than Predators ever did. So, I know I've given this rating out so many times this year, but The Predator is a movie that perfectly fits the rating. Watch at your own risk. You can definitely tell that this movie has hints of greatness scattered throughout. But when The Predator is bad, it's pretty bad. And again, that last act is just a giant mess. But this should be a movie where you decide whether you like it or not. If you still want to see The Predator, then go for it. If you like it, awesome. If you didn't like it, that's fine too. I'm sorry you didn't like it. And I really wish this movie was better. The best word to describe The Predator is disappointing. It definitely could have been a lot better, especially with Shane Black involved, but at the same time, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. And that's my review for The Predator and all of the solo Predator movies. But I'm not done quite yet. Now that I reviewed all the solo Predator movies, now that I reviewed all the Alien movies, it's time to take a look at the Alien vs. Predator movies. So next Wednesday, I will be talking about the first movie, Alien vs. Predator, which I have not seen since it came out in theaters in 2004. So I'm curious to see if my opinion will change. So hoping for the best. But first, I want to hear what you guys thought of The Predator. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen it. Where do you rank this among the other Predator sequels? And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course, leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.